My stepchild had perfect manners, so I called the police. I knew something was wrong when Maya said, "Yes, ma'am, I would be delighted to clean the bathroom." Not yeah, okay. Not do I have to? Not even a dramatic sigh followed by stomping upstairs. My 12-year-old stepchild, who just last week had rolled her eyes so hard I thought they might fall out when I asked her to put her dishes in the dishwasher, was standing in our kitchen at 6:47 p.m. on a Sunday evening, spine straight as a ruler, hands clasped behind her back like she was reporting for military inspection. "I'm sorry, what did you just say?" I set down the container of leftover spaghetti I'd been putting away and turned to face her fully. "I said I would be delighted to clean the bathroom, ma'am. Should I start with the toilet or would you prefer I begin with the mirror?" Her voice was flat, monotone, like she was reciting multiplication tables. This was the same kid who 3 days ago had argued with me for 20 minutes about whether brushing her teeth twice a day was really necessary or just something Big Toothbrush wants us to believe. Maya had just gotten back from her weekend at her biological mother's house. Usually, she came home wound up, full of stories about the movies they'd watched or the places they'd gone, sometimes a little attitude why as she readjusted to our house rules. This robot standing in my kitchen wasn't Maya. "Honey, you don't have to clean the bathroom right now. We just finished dinner. Don't you want to watch some TV or call Zoe about your science project?" "No, ma'am. I should complete my chores immediately upon being given instruction. May I please be excused to gather the cleaning supplies?" The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. Maya had never called me ma'am in the 2 years since I'd married her father. She called me Sarah, sometimes Sarah Mom when she was feeling particularly affectionate, and whatever when she was mad. But never ma'am. "Maya, sit down for a second." I pulled out one of the kitchen chairs. "How was your weekend with your mom?" She remained standing, that same rigid posture. "It was satisfactory, ma'am. We engaged in appropriate activities and I maintained proper behavior throughout my visit." Engaged in appropriate activities? I was talking to a 12-year-old, not a corporate quarterly report. What kind of appropriate activities? I kept my voice light, but inside I was screaming. Where was my stepchild who just last month had built a fort out of couch cushions and insisted we have a tea party inside it with her stuffed animals? We reviewed proper conduct expectations and practiced appropriate responses to authority figures. I also completed additional academic work to improve my performance. Additional academic work? Like homework? Supplemental discipline exercises to correct my previous behavioral deficiencies. I had to grip the counter to keep from showing the panic rising in my chest. Maya was a straight A student. She'd never had behavioral deficiencies in her life unless you counted the completely normal preteen attitude that every kid her age had. "Maya, baby, you can sit down. You're not in trouble. I just want to talk." "I prefer to stand, ma'am. Sitting without permission would be inappropriate." Permission. To sit in her own house. In the kitchen where she'd done homework every day for 2 years, where she'd spilled orange juice just last Tuesday and laughed until she snorted when I slipped on it. That's when I knew I was going to call the police. I managed to keep my voice steady, but my hands were shaking as I texted my husband David, "Come home now. Something's wrong with Maya." He was at his Sunday night poker game at his brother's house, probably 3 beers in and complaining about his fantasy football lineup. Under normal circumstances, I'd never interrupt. But these weren't normal circumstances. "Maya, I'm going to make some hot chocolate. Would you like some?" I needed to do something with my hands before I completely lost it. "Thank you for the offer, ma'am, but I have not completed my assigned tasks. I should not accept refreshments until my duties are fulfilled." Assigned tasks. Duties. This was a 12-year-old talking about making hot chocolate like she was negotiating a prisoner exchange. My phone buzzed. "David, what's wrong? Is she hurt?" I glanced at Maya, still standing at attention by the kitchen table, staring straight ahead like she was waiting for her next orders. I typed back quickly, "Not hurt. Different. Come home." "Maya, what assigned tasks?" "I asked you to think about maybe cleaning the bathroom later this week." "That was just a suggestion." "I apologize for my confusion, ma'am. Should I disregard the bathroom and focus on other areas requiring attention?" "I could reorganize the pantry or scrub the baseboards." Scrub the baseboards. Maya had never voluntarily cleaned anything in her entire life. Last month, I'd found a sandwich growing mold under her bed that she'd forgotten about for 3 weeks. "Honey, when did your mom's boyfriend move in with them?" I tried to make it sound casual, like I was just making conversation. Her entire body went rigid. If I thought she was standing straight before, now she looked like someone had run a steel rod through her spine. "I should not discuss the household arrangements of my biological mother, ma'am." Biological mother. Maya had called her mom since she could talk. Sometimes mama when she was sick or scared. Never biological mother. "It's okay to talk about your weekend, sweetie. You always tell me about what you and your mom do together. Previous conversations were inappropriate, ma'am. I should maintain proper boundaries regarding household privacy." The front door slammed open and David's voice carried down the hallway. "Sarah? Maya? Where's everyone?" "Kitchen," I called back, not taking my eyes off Maya. David appeared in the doorway, still wearing his world's okayest dad t-shirt, car keys in his hand. He looked between Maya's military posture and my white-knuckled grip on the counter. "Hey princess, how was your weekend?" He moved toward Maya with his arms open for their usual hug. Maya stepped back and clasped her hands behind her back again. "Good evening, sir. My weekend was satisfactory. Thank you for inquiring." David stopped dead. "Sir?" "Maya, what?" "I apologize for interrupting, sir. I should complete my assigned chores. May I please be excused to clean the bathroom?" David's face went through about 5 different expressions in 3 seconds. Confusion, then concern, then something that looked a lot like the fury I was feeling. "Maya, you don't need permission to move around your own house." His voice was carefully controlled, but I could hear the edge underneath. "This is your home." "Yes, sir. I understand. However, I should maintain proper protocols to avoid consequences." "Consequences." That's when David's expression shifted to the same cold rage I was feeling. He looked at me over Maya's head, and I saw my own thoughts reflected in his eyes. Someone had terrified our child into this robotic compliance. Someone had threatened her with consequences serious enough that she was afraid to sit down in her own kitchen. I was definitely calling the police. David crouched down to Maya's eye level, moving slowly like she was a spooked animal. Princess, can you look at me? Maya's gaze snapped to his face with military precision. Not the soft, gradual attention of a daughter looking at her dad, but the sharp focus of a soldier acknowledging a superior officer. There's my girl, David said softly, but I caught the slight tremor in his voice. Maya, who taught you about protocols? Her jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. I received instruction in proper behavior management, sir. From who? From appropriate authority figures, sir. David and I exchanged another look. Maya was deflecting with the skill of someone who'd been drilled on what not to say. Maya, I said, keeping my voice as gentle as possible, what happens if you don't follow the protocols? The change was immediate and terrifying. Her face went completely white, and for just a second, her carefully controlled posture cracked. I saw a flash of genuine terror before the robot mask slammed back into place. I will maintain appropriate behavior standards, ma'am. There is no need to discuss alternative scenarios. Baby, you're safe here, David said urgently. Nothing bad is going to happen to you in this house. You know that, right? Yes, sir. I understand that compliance ensures safety. Compliance ensures safety. Jesus Christ, someone had drilled that into my 12-year-old stepchild like a mantra. My phone buzzed on the counter. Text message. I glanced at it and felt my stomach drop. Maya, is that your mom texting me? Her posture somehow became even more rigid. I should not speculate about communications between adults, ma'am. I read the message aloud. Sarah, just checking that Maya is following her new behavior guidelines. Marcus has been working with her on respect and discipline. Hope you see improvement. Lisa. Marcus. That was the boyfriend's name. I'd met him exactly once, 3 months ago when he'd picked Maya up for their weekend. Tall guy, buzz cut, the kind of handshake that was just a little too firm, too long. He'd called Maya kiddo in a way that somehow sounded more like a command than endearment. Maya, David said carefully, what kind of work has Marcus been doing with you? Her breathing became shallow, rapid. Behavior modification exercises, sir. To correct deficient conduct patterns. What kind of exercises? Standing practice. Verbal response training. Consequence education. I felt sick. How long do you have to stand during standing practice? A muscle in her jaw twitched. Duration varies based on performance quality, ma'am. How long, Maya? This weekend sessions ranged from 37 minutes to 2 hours and 14 minutes. 2 hours. They'd made a 12-year-old stand at attention for over 2 hours. David's hands clenched into fists. What's consequence education? I asked, though I was terrified to hear the answer. Maya's voice became even more monotone, like she was reciting from a script. Learning exercises that demonstrate the results of inappropriate behavior choices. What kind of learning exercises? For the first time since she'd been home, Maya hesitated. Her eyes darted between David and me, and I saw genuine fear war with whatever had been drilled into her. I should not provide detailed accounts of training procedures, ma'am. That would violate privacy protocols. Privacy protocols. They'd taught her that what happened in their house was secret. They'd systematically terrified my stepchild and then coached her never to tell anyone about it. I walked to the kitchen drawer where we kept important papers and pulled out the card Detective Morrison had given us last year when our neighbor's house was burglarized. Maya, I need to make a phone call. Can you stay here with Dad? Are you calling about my behavior violations, ma'am? The terror in her voice was unmistakable now. I will improve my performance. Additional training is unnecessary. No, baby, I said, my heart breaking. You haven't done anything wrong. Not one single thing. But as I dialed the number, I could see she didn't believe me. Detective Morrison arrived 43 minutes later, and I spent every one of those minutes watching Maya stand in our living room like a statue while David sat on the couch pretending to watch the news. Neither of us knew what to do. Every time we tried to get her to sit down, to relax, to just be a normal kid for 5 minutes, she'd recite some variation of I prefer to maintain proper posture, sir, or relaxation periods should be earned through completed duties, ma'am. When the doorbell rang, Maya's entire body went rigid with terror. Maya, this is Detective Morrison, I said as I led him into the living room. He's here to help us figure out what's been going on. Good evening, sir, Maya said, snapping to an even straighter posture if that was possible. I apologize if my conduct has been insufficient. I will accept corrective instruction. Detective Morrison, a soft-spoken man in his 50s who dealt with our neighborhood's minor crimes with patience and thoroughness, took one look at Maya and his expression shifted into something I recognized from police procedurals. Professional concern mixed with controlled anger. Hello, Maya. I'm not here because of anything you did wrong. I just want to talk with you and your parents about your weekend. Would that be okay? Yes, sir. I will provide appropriate responses to authorized questioning. Morrison glanced at David and me, then back to Maya. Can you tell me about Marcus? Your mom's friend? Maya's hands, still clasped behind her back, began to tremble slightly. Marcus is an appropriate authority figure who provides behavioral guidance, sir. What kind of behavioral guidance? Structure and discipline training to eliminate disrespectful tendencies and promote compliance with adult instruction. Morrison pulled out a small notebook. Maya, when you say eliminate disrespectful tendencies, what does that mean exactly? Marcus identified numerous deficiencies in my conduct. Rolling my eyes, sighing, arguing with instructions, requesting explanations for rules, and displaying attitude problems. I wanted to scream. Those weren't deficiencies, they were normal 12-year-old behaviors. Maya had never been disrespectful in any way that mattered. How does Marcus help you eliminate these behaviors? Morrison asked. Maya's breathing became shallower. Through educational consequences that demonstrate the discomfort caused by poor choices. Can you give me an example of an educational consequence? The silence stretched for nearly 30 seconds. Maya stared straight ahead, her jaw working like she was fighting some internal battle. Wall time, she finally whispered. Standing against the wall with my nose touching it, arms at my sides, no moving or speaking. When I moved or spoke during instruction, the timer reset. How long was wall time this weekend? Friday evening was 43 minutes because I said what when given an instruction instead of yes sir. Could you please repeat that? Saturday morning was 1 hour and 16 minutes because I sat down during a correction lecture without permission. Saturday evening was 2 hours and 14 minutes because I cried during wall time, which Marcus explained was manipulation behavior. She cried during punishment, so they punished her longer for crying. My hands were shaking so hard I had to sit on them. What other educational consequences did you experience? Morrison's voice remained perfectly calm, professional. Cold water standing. Meal earning. Silence training. David leaned forward. What's meal earning? Demonstrating sufficient respect and compliance before being permitted to eat. I successfully earned breakfast on Saturday after a 40-minute respectful behavior demonstration. I did not earn lunch because my standing posture was insufficient during correction time. They'd starved her. My 12-year-old stepchild had been systematically starved as punishment for having normal human posture during their sick power games. Maya, Morrison said gently, did Marcus or your mother tell you not to discuss these training methods with your father and stepmother? Her control finally cracked completely. Tears started streaming down her face, but she didn't move, didn't wipe them away, didn't change her rigid posture. Yes sir, she sobbed. Discussing training details would result in advanced consequence education. But I failed. I told you anyway. I'm going to be in so much trouble. That's when I knew Marcus was never going to get the chance to hurt her again. Detective Morrison closed his notebook and looked directly at Maya. Maya, I need you to understand something very important. You are not in trouble. Not with me, not with your dad, not with Sarah. What you just told me took incredible courage, and you did exactly the right thing. Maya's tears continued falling, but her voice remained that same terrified monotone. Marcus explained that discussing family business with outsiders is a serious violation, sir. He said advanced consequences would help me remember better. What are advanced consequences? Morrison asked, though from his expression, I could tell he already suspected. Maya's whole body started shaking. I should not provide specific details about correction procedures, sir. That would compound the violation. Maya, you're safe right now, David said, standing up from the couch. Whatever Marcus told you would happen, it's not going to happen. We won't let it. With respect, sir, you cannot prevent consequence education. Marcus explained that he has methods to ensure training continues regardless of location. The way she said it, so matter of fact, like she was discussing homework assignments, made my blood run cold. This man had convinced a 12-year-old that he could reach her anywhere, punish her anywhere. Morrison leaned forward slightly. Maya, did Marcus threaten to hurt you if you told people about the training? Not hurt, sir. Educate. Marcus does not hurt children, he helps them learn respect through natural consequences of their choices. She was parroting his exact words. I could practically hear his voice coming out of her mouth. What did he say would happen if you told your dad and Sarah about wall time and meal earning? Maya closed her eyes, fresh tears squeezing out. He said if I proved I couldn't keep family business private, he would help me practice privacy until I learned the lesson properly. How would he help you practice? Extended isolation education. 3 days in the correction room with meal earning every 6 hours based on respectful behavior demonstrations and proper privacy commitments. 3 days. They were going to lock her in a room for 3 days, only feeding her if she performed their sick obedience rituals every 6 hours. Morrison made a note. Maya, where's the correction room? The basement storage room at Mom's apartment, sir. Marcus removed the inappropriate items and installed proper learning materials. What kind of learning materials? A mat for sleeping, a waste bucket, and educational posters about respect and obedience. And the recording equipment. My stomach dropped. Recording equipment? Maya's voice became barely audible. Marcus records training sessions to review my performance and identify areas needing additional work. He said the recordings help him track improvement patterns. Morrison's pen stopped moving. Maya, does your mother know about the recordings? Yes, sir. Mom reviews them with Marcus every Sunday evening to discuss my weekly behavior scores and plan the next week's training objectives. Lisa knew. Maya's own mother knew they were torturing her child and recording it, and she was helping plan it. How long has this training been happening? Morrison asked. Marcus moved in 6 weeks ago and immediately identified serious behavioral deficiencies requiring intensive correction, sir. Week 1 was assessment and baseline establishment. Week 2 through 6 have been active training implementation. 6 weeks. For 6 weeks, they'd been systematically breaking down my stepchild every other weekend, and we'd never known because Maya had been too terrified to tell us. Maya, I said, my voice barely steady, the recording equipment, does Marcus ever share those recordings with other people? Her face went completely white. I should not speculate about administrative procedures, ma'am. That's not speculating, honey. Do you know if he shows the recordings to anyone else? Marcus has colleagues who review training effectiveness for educational purposes, she whispered. He said successful correction methods should be shared to help other children learn proper respect. I was going to be sick. They weren't just torturing her, they were sharing videos of it with other people. Morrison stood up abruptly. Maya, I need you to stay here with your dad and Sarah. I'm going to make some phone calls, and then some other people are going to want to talk with you. But I promise you, you will not be going back to that house. Sir, my custody schedule requires. Your custody schedule just changed, Morrison said firmly. You're staying right here until we sort this out. As he stepped into the hallway to make his calls, I could hear fragments, need CPS here immediately, video evidence, multiple felonies, emergency custody order. Maya remained standing in the living room, tears still streaming down her face, body still rigid with terror. Baby, David said softly, it's over. You're never going back there. Marcus said people might try to interfere with my education, she replied in that horrible robotic voice. He said he would always find a way to continue my training because good parents don't give up on helping their children learn respect. That's when I realized we weren't just dealing with abuse, we were dealing with someone who truly believed he was helping her. Someone who would fight to get her back. And I was going to make sure he never got the chance. Over the next hour, our living room filled with people. Detective Morrison returned with his partner, Detective Chen. A CPS caseworker named Janet Holbrook arrived with a thick folder and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Maya stood through all of it, answering questions in that same terrifying monotone, occasionally asking permission to use the bathroom or get water. Maya, honey, you don't need to ask permission for basic things, Janet said gently after Maya requested authorization to blow her nose. This is your home. Requesting permission demonstrates respect for authority and prevents assumption-based violations, ma'am. Janet made notes. I watched her face cycle through the same progression of emotions we'd all experienced, confusion, concern, then barely contained fury. Detective Chen was focused on logistics. We'll need to coordinate with the county where the mother lives. This Marcus character, do we have a last name? I pulled up Lisa's Facebook on my phone. Marcus Kellerman. Looks like he's originally from Arizona. Claims he was military police, though I have no idea if that's true. We'll verify, Morrison said grimly. The recording equipment concerns me most. If he's distributing videos of child abuse, we're looking at federal charges. Maya's head snapped toward him. The training recordings serve educational purposes, sir. Marcus explained that sharing effective correction methods helps other families establish proper discipline structures. The room went dead silent. Maya, Janet said carefully, did Marcus tell you that other children receive the same kind of training? Yes, ma'am. He said his methods have helped numerous children overcome behavioral deficiencies. He showed me before and after videos of successful training completions. Chen's jaw tightened. He showed you videos of other kids? Educational demonstrations of training effectiveness, sir. Marcus said reviewing successful transformations would motivate me to embrace the correction process. They weren't just abusing Maya, they were running some kind of systematic operation, documenting everything, sharing techniques. This was so much bigger than one sick boyfriend. Morrison's phone rang. He stepped aside, spoke quietly for several minutes, then returned looking grim. Emergency custody hearing is set for tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Judge Morrison, no relation, is issuing a temporary restraining order tonight. Maya won't be returning to her mother's house pending investigation. What about my behavior scores? Maya asked anxiously. Missing scheduled training sessions will result in accumulated demerits. Marcus tracks weekly progress very carefully. Baby, there are no more behavior scores, David said, his voice breaking slightly. No more demerits. No more Marcus. Maya's composure finally cracked completely. You don't understand, she cried, still maintaining that rigid posture even while sobbing. Marcus never gives up. He said some children require more intensive education, and he's prepared for resistance from people who don't understand proper discipline. He has backup plans. The terror in her voice was visceral. Even now, surrounded by police and child services, she couldn't believe she was truly safe. What kind of backup plans? Chen asked. Maya's breathing became rapid, panicked. He said if anyone tried to interfere with my training, he would demonstrate the consequences of involving outsiders. He has my schedule memorized, school pickup times, after-school activities, weekend plans. He said good trainers always have multiple access points for continued education. Chen and Morrison exchanged dark looks. This wasn't just abuse, Marcus had been essentially stalking my stepchild, learning her routines, planning contingencies. Maya, has Marcus ever approached you at school or followed you other places? Janet asked. Not followed, ma'am. Supervised. Last Tuesday he observed my after-school behavior from the parking lot to assess my conduct when not under direct family authority. He said my posture and attitude required additional correction. He'd been watching her at school. A week ago, while we thought everything was normal, this predator had been lurking in Maya's school parking lot, taking notes on her behavior like she was a lab experiment. I looked at my husband, at the detective, at the CPS worker, and saw my own realization reflected in their faces. Maya wasn't just a victim we needed to protect. She was bait this monster would use to lure his next target. And he wasn't planning to let her go without a fight. Detective Chen's phone buzzed with a text. His expression darkened as he read it. We've got a problem. Marcus Kellerman just called the mother's cell phone. Lisa told him about the police visit. My heart stopped. What did she tell him? According to our officer at her apartment, she called him immediately after we left. Said Maya was making up stories and causing trouble with the authorities. Maya's face went completely white. He knows I violated privacy protocols, she whispered. Advanced consequence education is now unavoidable. Maya, he can't hurt you anymore, David said firmly, but I could see the fear in his eyes too. Detective Morrison hung up his own call. Gets worse. Kellerman isn't at the mother's apartment anymore. She claims he left to handle the situation but won't say where he went. We've got units heading to his last known address, but... He didn't finish, but I understood. Marcus was in the wind, and he'd been planning for this scenario. Janet Holbrook leaned forward. Maya, you mentioned Marcus has colleagues who review the training videos. Do you know any names? He called them his network, ma'am. Other trainers who share effective correction methods. He said they have children in multiple states receiving proper discipline education. Multiple states. This wasn't just one predator, it was an organized group. Did you ever see these colleagues? Meet them? Chen pressed. Maya nodded, that same terrified rigidity. 2 Sundays ago, 3 other trainers visited to observe my progress session. Marcus had me demonstrate proper standing procedures and respectful response protocols while they evaluated my improvement. They'd put on a live show with my stepchild as the entertainment. I gripped the arm of the couch so hard my knuckles went white. Can you describe these people? Morrison asked, pulling out his notebook again. 2 males, 1 female, sir. The female trainer had a red notebook where she recorded timing data during my wall time demonstration. 1 male had tattoos on his forearms, military insignias. The other male wore a suit and asked detailed questions about meal earning effectiveness. They were comparing techniques. Taking notes. Treating child torture like a professional development workshop. Maya, did they bring any children with them? Janet asked gently. The silence stretched for nearly a minute. Maya's breathing became shallow again. The female trainer brought her daughter for comparison evaluation, ma'am. A girl approximately my age who demonstrated superior compliance techniques. Marcus said I should observe her performance to identify areas for improvement. What was this girl's name? Subjects are identified by training numbers during educational sessions, not names, ma'am. She was Subject 7. I am Subject 12. Subject 12. They'd dehumanized my stepchild into a numbered experiment. Chen was already on his phone. We need federal involvement immediately. This is organized, multi-state child trafficking and abuse. Morrison's radio crackled. He listened, then looked grim. Lisa Brennan just admitted Marcus has been recording everything since day one. Says she thought it was just for safety, but there are over 200 files on his computer. She's claiming she never watched them, just signed consent forms he told her were required for proper documentation. Consent forms for what? I asked. Child behavioral modification therapy. Kellerman presented himself as a licensed family counselor specializing in intensive discipline restructuring. The mother signed papers authorizing him to record sessions, share data with colleagues, and implement necessary correction protocols. Maya's face crumpled. Mom knew? She signed papers saying Marcus could train me? The devastation in her voice was worse than the fear had been. This wasn't just stranger abuse, her own mother had handed her over to these monsters with legal documentation. David stood abruptly, pacing to the window. How long before we know if Maya's safe? If this bastard is planning something? Morrison's radio crackled again. Detective Morrison, we've got movement at the subject's school. Unknown male matching Kellerman's description observed in the parking lot 30 minutes ago. Security footage confirms, but he's gone now. My blood turned to ice. He'd already been to Maya's school. Tonight. He's escalating, Chin said grimly. Testing security, checking access points. Maya began shaking uncontrollably. He said resistance from unauthorized persons would require demonstration consequences. He's going to implement advanced education protocols to show other subjects what happens when privacy is violated. What kind of demonstration consequences? Janet asked. Maya's voice dropped to barely a whisper. Public correction sessions to educate the community about proper respect for authority. He said some lessons require witnesses to be effective. The room fell silent as we all realized what she meant. Marcus wasn't planning to hide anymore. He was planning to make an example of her. Detective Chen's radio exploded with static, then a voice. All units, we've got Kellerman. Traffic stop on Highway 49, 2 miles from the elementary school. He's in custody. The relief that flooded through me was so intense I actually felt dizzy. Maya's rigid posture didn't change, but I saw something shift in her eyes, the first glimpse of hope I'd seen all evening. Is it over? David asked, moving back from the window. Morrison held up a hand, listening to his radio. They're searching his vehicle now. Found zip ties, duct tape, and what appears to be recording equipment. Also recovered a detailed map of Maya's school with entry points marked and her daily schedule written in the margins. My stomach lurched. He'd been planning to take her. Tonight, probably. There's more, Morrison continued grimly. Kellerman had a burner phone with him. 17 missed calls from different numbers in the last 2 hours. Our tech guys think it's his network, other trainers trying to warn him we were closing in. Maya's voice was barely audible, the emergency protocols. Marcus said if any trainer was compromised, the network would activate containment procedures to protect ongoing educational programs. Janet leaned forward. Maya, what are containment procedures? Relocation of active subjects to secure training facilities until the threat passes, ma'am. Marcus said the network has safe houses in multiple states where education can continue without interference. Chen was already dialing. We need task force coordination across state lines immediately. If there are other kids. His phone rang before he finished the sentence. He answered, listened for 30 seconds, then looked at Morrison with something like excitement. Phoenix PD just raided an address from Kellerman's phone contacts. Found 3 children locked in a basement, ages 9 to 13. All showing signs of systematic abuse matching Maya's description. 3 more kids. 3 more Mayas who've been living this nightmare. Are they okay? I asked. Alive. Terrified, but alive. The parents had signed similar consent forms to Maya's mother, thought they were sending their kids to intensive behavioral therapy camps on weekends. Morrison's radio crackled again. Detective, we've got a problem. Lisa Brennan is asking to speak with her daughter. Claims parental rights, wants Maya returned to her custody immediately pending the hearing. Maya's entire body went rigid with fresh terror. She's going to be angry about the training violation, she whispered. Mom always said family problems should stay in the family. Maya, your mom can't take you anywhere tonight, Janet said firmly. The emergency custody order prevents that. But she signed the papers, Maya said, confused. She gave Marcus permission to educate me properly. If I caused problems for his program, she'll want to fix it. David knelt beside her chair. Princess, your mom made a terrible mistake. She trusted someone who lied to her about what he was really doing. No sir, Maya said, back to that robotic tone. Mom knew about wall time. She helped Marcus determine appropriate durations based on my violation severity levels. She said I needed structure she couldn't provide alone. The room went dead silent. Morrison looked like he'd been punched. Maya, your mother watched the training sessions? Not watched, sir. Reviewed recordings afterward and provided feedback on effectiveness. Mom said Marcus was helping me become more respectful, and she could see improvement in the videos. Lisa hadn't just signed consent forms, she'd been actively participating, reviewing footage of her daughter's torture and helping plan more. Chen's phone buzzed with another update. He read it, then looked at Janet. Lisa Brennan just confessed to detectives. Claimed she knew the methods were harsh but thought Maya needed tough love to fix her attitude problems. She's admitted to approving extended isolation periods and meal restrictions. Maya's mother had watched videos of her 12-year-old daughter crying during 2-hour punishment sessions and decided she needed tougher consequences. My stepchild was never going back to that house. Ever. Detective Morrison's radio erupted with urgent chatter just as I thought we might finally catch our breath. He listened intently, his face growing darker with each crackling transmission. "We got multiple raids happening simultaneously," he announced grimly. "Dallas, Phoenix, Seattle, and Denver. The network is bigger than we thought." Maya remained frozen in that horrible rigid posture, but I saw her eyes dart between the adults in the room. "How many subjects are in the network, sir?" she asked in that flat, terrified tone. Chen looked up from his phone. "Early reports suggest at least 12 children across 4 states. Ages 8 to 15. 12 children. 12 kids who'd been living Maya's nightmare while their parents thought they were getting behavioral therapy." "Maya," Janet said gently, "when Marcus showed you those before and after videos of other children, did you recognize any of the locations? Basement rooms that looked similar to your mother's apartment?" Maya's breathing became shallow. "The correction rooms all follow standardized design protocols, ma'am. Same educational materials, same recording equipment placement, same isolation specifications." Marcus said consistency ensures training effectiveness across all network facilities. They had a blueprint. An actual system for setting up child torture chambers, complete with equipment lists and room layouts. Morrison's phone rang. He stepped away to answer, spoke quietly for several minutes, then returned looking like he'd seen a ghost. "The Seattle raid just uncovered something disturbing," he said, glancing at Maya before continuing carefully. "They found detailed profiles on over 30 children who weren't part of active training yet. Background research, behavioral assessments, family vulnerability analyses." My heart stopped. "What kind of vulnerability analyses?" "Single parents, recent divorces, families struggling with normal childhood behavioral issues. The network was systematically targeting parents who might be desperate enough to believe their kids needed intensive intervention." Maya's voice was barely a whisper. "Marcus called them prospect families, sir. He said there were many children who would benefit from proper educational restructuring if their parents could be helped to understand the necessity." Chen's jaw tightened. "Maya, did Marcus ever mention specific names of children who weren't in training yet but might be soon?" The silence stretched for nearly a full minute. Maya stared straight ahead, that internal battle playing out across her features again. "Subject candidates were identified by behavioral indicators and family circumstances," she finally said. "Children displaying disrespect, attitude problems, or defiance toward authority figures. Marcus maintained detailed observation records on potential subjects." "Where did he keep these records?" "Digital files organized by region and readiness assessment, sir. Color-coded spreadsheets tracking family stress levels, financial pressures, and parental desperation indicators. They weren't just abusers, they were predators with a sophisticated targeting system, hunting vulnerable families like sharks scenting blood in the water." Detective Chen's phone buzzed with an urgent text. His face went white as he read it. "What is it?" I asked, though I was terrified to know. The Denver raid found something else. A planning document titled Expansion Protocol 7. It's a detailed strategy for recruiting new trainers and establishing additional network nodes in untapped regions. Maya's entire body began trembling. "Expansion protocols require demonstration of training effectiveness to potential new trainers, sir." Marcus said successful subject transformations serve as recruitment tools. Morrison leaned forward. "Maya, what kind of demonstrations?" "Live training sessions where prospect trainers can observe proper correction techniques and subject compliance results," she whispered. Marcus said nothing convinces new trainers like seeing a successfully educated subject demonstrate perfect behavioral modification. The room fell silent as we all realized what she meant. They weren't just planning to torture more children, they were using the kids they'd already broken as live advertisements to recruit more abusers. And Maya, with her terrifyingly perfect compliance, would have been their star recruitment tool. Chen was already dialing. "We need protective custody protocols for every child recovered tonight. This network isn't just going to disappear, they're going to fight to get these kids back." That's when I knew our nightmare was far from over. Janet's phone rang at 11:47 p.m., just as we thought Maya might finally be safe enough to sleep. She'd been standing in our living room for over 5 hours straight, refusing every offer to sit down, eat something, or even use the bathroom without formal permission. "This is Janet," she answered, then her face went completely white. "What do you mean escaped?" My blood turned to ice. David grabbed my hand so hard I felt my wedding ring dig into my finger. "When?" Janet demanded into the phone. "How is that possible?" Maya's rigid posture became even more impossible straight. "Marcus has implemented escape protocols, hasn't he, ma'am?" Her voice was that same terrified monotone. "He said network trainers always have contingency plans for law enforcement interference." Janet hung up and looked at Detective Morrison with barely controlled panic. "Kellerman's gone. Transport van was hit by 2 vehicles on Highway 49 20 minutes ago. Professional operation, they cut him out of his restraints and vanished before backup arrived." "The network," Morrison said grimly. "They broke him out." Maya's breathing became rapid and shallow. "Emergency extraction procedures activate when a trainer is compromised, sir." Marcus said the network never abandons educational personnel who maintain program loyalty. Chin was already coordinating on his radio, but I could see the fear in his eyes. "All units, suspect Marcus Kellerman has escaped custody. Consider extremely dangerous. Approach with caution." "He's coming for Maya," David said, stating what we all knew. Maya nodded, tears streaming down her face while she maintained that horrible perfect posture. "Escaped subjects require immediate recapture and intensive correction education, sir." Marcus said resistance to the training program necessitates advanced behavioral modification to prevent contamination of other subjects. "What does that mean, honey?" I asked, though I was terrified of the answer. "Public demonstration sessions, ma'am. When subjects violate program protocols by involving outside authorities, their correction must serve as education for other children in the network." Marcus said examples prevent future resistance. Janet pulled me aside. "We need to move Maya to a secure location immediately. If Kellerman has help, your house isn't safe." Through the window, I could see Detective Chin positioning officers around our property, but it felt inadequate. These people had just executed a coordinated prison break. Our quiet suburban street wasn't going to stop them. "Maya, we need to go somewhere safer," I said gently. She didn't move. "Relocation will not prevent consequence education, ma'am. Marcus has tracking protocols for subjects who attempt to evade training completion." He said there is nowhere subjects can hide from proper behavioral modification. Morrison's radio crackled with updates from the other raids. Phoenix reports 2 adults escaped during the raid, suspected network trainers. Seattle found evidence of planned relocation for all subjects within 48 hours. This was coordinated. They knew we were coming, Chin realized. Someone warned the network. Maya's voice was barely audible. Marcus said law enforcement agencies contain sympathetic personnel who understand the value of proper child discipline education. He called them administrative allies. My stomach dropped. The network had contacts inside police departments. Janet's phone buzzed with another urgent call. She answered, listened for 30 seconds, then looked at us with something approaching desperation. The safe house we arranged for Maya? It was just surveilled by unknown individuals. 2 men in a white van, taking photographs and mapping exit routes. Maya closed her eyes, fresh tears squeezing out. Marcus said escaped subjects only postpone their educational completion. Network resources ensure all training programs reach successful conclusion, regardless of temporary interference. David stood up abruptly. Then we don't wait for them to come to us. What are you thinking? Morrison asked. Maya said they record everything, right? And they use those recordings to recruit new trainers? David's voice was gaining strength. What if we turned that against them? I looked at my husband, then at our terrified stepchild who'd been standing at attention for over 5 hours, and realized he was right. If Marcus wanted a demonstration, we'd give him one. But not the kind he was expecting. The plan David had in mind became clear over the next hour as we huddled in our kitchen while police secured the perimeter. Maya remained standing by the counter, still asking permission for basic human needs, while we plotted to use her nightmare against the monsters who created it. They want their star pupil back for demonstration purposes, David explained to Detective Morrison and Janet. What if we let them think they're getting her? Morrison frowned. Absolutely not. We're not using a child as bait. Not as bait, I said, understanding where David was going. As evidence. Maya said they record everything, right? What if we controlled the recording this time? Janet looked between us. What exactly are you proposing? Maya's voice was barely a whisper. You want to allow Marcus to recapture me for advanced consequence education, ma'am? The terror in her question broke my heart. No, baby. We want to catch him trying to recapture you. Get him and his network on camera attempting to kidnap a child. Detective Chen looked up from coordinating surveillance routes. The network operates by staying hidden, convincing parents they're legitimate therapists. If we can document them in the act of child abduction, using their own recording equipment, we destroy their credibility and their recruitment strategy, Morrison finished, warming to the idea. Parents won't sign consent forms for behavioral therapy if there's video evidence it's actually organized child abuse. Maya's rigid posture somehow became even more tense. Marcus will implement maximum correction protocols if he discovers a recording entrapment, sir. Subject punishment escalates proportionally to perceived deception levels. Maya, you won't actually be alone with him, I promised. We'll have police positioned everywhere. The second he shows up, he's arrested. Network extraction teams are trained for law enforcement scenarios, ma'am, she replied in that horrible monotone. Marcus said they can neutralize standard police response protocols within 7 to 12 minutes of engagement. Chen's radio crackled with an update. Detective, we've got movement. White van spotted 3 blocks from your location, circling the neighborhood. 2 occupants, 1 matching Kellerman's description. My heart started pounding. They're here already. Morrison was already coordinating positions. Units 2 and 4, maintain perimeter but stay back. Do not engage until suspect makes contact with the residence. Maya began shaking uncontrollably while maintaining that terrifying rigid posture. He's implementing immediate recapture protocols, sir. Marcus said escaped subjects who involve authorities require expedited educational completion. Through our kitchen window, I could see the white van making another slow pass down our street. Even from this distance, I could make out 2 figures in the front seats, one pointing toward our house. Maya, I need you to listen carefully, Janet said, kneeling beside her. We're going to let them see you through the window, but you'll be completely safe. There are 12 officers positioned around your house. 12 officers will not prevent consequence education, ma'am, Maya whispered. Marcus showed me news footage of network operations in other cities. They have equipment and training for multiple resistance scenarios. Chen's phone buzzed with an urgent text. His face went pale as he read it. The Phoenix raid location? It just exploded. Professionally rigged charges, complete destruction of all evidence. No casualties because the building was already evacuated, but they're destroying evidence, Morrison realized. Which means they're not planning to disappear quietly. Maya's breathing became rapid and shallow. Evidence destruction activates final protocol sequences, sir. When network operations are compromised beyond recovery, all active subjects must be relocated to permanent training facilities. What are permanent training facilities? I asked, though I was terrified of the answer. Secure locations where subjects receive comprehensive behavioral modification without interference from outside authorities, ma'am. Marcus said some children require months or years of intensive education to achieve proper compliance. The white van had stopped directly across from our house. Even in the darkness, I could see one of the occupants talking on a phone while the other appeared to be setting up some kind of equipment. Morrison's radio exploded with chatter, multiple vehicles converging on the neighborhood. Count now 5 vehicles, estimated 12 to 15 suspects. This is not a simple kidnapping attempt. David grabbed my arm. They're not just coming for Maya. They're coming for everyone who knows about the network. Maya's voice was barely audible. Witness elimination protocols, sir. Marcus said when network security is threatened, all contaminated personnel must be processed through corrective education or permanent solution procedures. The room fell silent as we realized what she meant. They weren't just planning to take Maya back. They were planning to make sure none of us could testify about what we discovered. Chen's radio erupted with urgent chatter at 12:23 a.m. All units, we've got a major problem. The suspects aren't just positioning for extraction, they're setting up some kind of broadcast equipment. My blood went cold. Through our kitchen window, I could see figures moving between the vehicles, unloading cases, and what looked like professional filming gear. They're going to record it, I realized with horror. Whatever they're planning to do here, they want it documented. Maya's rigid posture began trembling violently. Live demonstration protocols, ma'am. When network security reaches critical compromise levels, Marcus said public education sessions serve dual purposes: subject correction and trainer recruitment through real-time viewing. Real-time viewing? Morrison demanded. Maya, are they planning to broadcast this? Yes, sir. Network communications include live streaming capabilities for educational demonstrations. Marcus said nothing convinces prospect families and trainers like witnessing immediate behavioral correction results. Janet pulled out her phone, dialing frantically. We need the tech unit here immediately. If they're planning to live stream child abuse. Ma'am, Maya interrupted in that terrible monotone, the broadcast serves additional network protection. Marcus explained that public viewing creates legal complications for law enforcement intervention during educational sessions. Chen looked up sharply from his radio coordination. What kind of legal complications? Witness accountability protocols, sir. When training sessions have live audiences, intervention attempts result in public documentation of law enforcement interference with parental discipline rights. Marcus said judges become reluctant to prosecute when thousands of viewers witness police preventing legitimate child correction. The sophistication was staggering. They weren't just abusers, they were manipulating public perception and legal systems by turning their crimes into twisted performance art. Morrison's radio crackled. Detective, suspect vehicle count now up to 7. They've established a perimeter around the entire block. No residents can get in or out. Through our front window, I could see neighbors' house lights turning on as people realized something major was happening. Mrs. Patterson from 2 doors down was peering through her curtains. The elderly couple across the street had come out on their porch. They're using the neighbors as human shields, David realized. Making it impossible for police to move aggressively without risking civilian casualties. Maya's voice became even more robotic. Community integration protocols, sir. Marcus said educational demonstrations in residential settings create optimal behavioral modification environments while ensuring law enforcement compliance with public safety procedures. Chen's phone buzzed with another update. His expression grew darker as he read. Phoenix just intercepted communications from the network. They're calling this Operation Final Education. At least 47 people are watching the live stream already, and it hasn't even started yet. Watching what live stream? I asked, though I was terrified of the answer. Maya closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face. Advanced consequence education for privacy protocol violations, ma'am. When subjects involve unauthorized personnel in training operations, their correction must demonstrate the results of resistance to network educational programs. Morrison grabbed his radio. All units, we need to move now. Whatever they're planning, we cannot allow it to proceed. Sir, Maya said urgently, immediate law enforcement action will trigger emergency protocols. Marcus has contingency procedures for premature intervention scenarios. Before Morrison could respond, every phone in the room buzzed simultaneously with the same text message from an unknown number. Educational demonstration begins in 10 minutes. Subject 12 report to front yard for correction session. Law enforcement interference will result in expanded consequence protocols for all residential occupants. Live viewing available at networkeducation.stream. Maya's control finally shattered completely. He's going to hurt everyone, she sobbed while maintaining that horrible rigid posture. Marcus said resistance creates expanding circles of consequence education until proper respect is achieved. Through our window, I could see more equipment being set up, professional lighting rigs being positioned to illuminate our front yard like a television studio. They were turning our home into a stage for live-streamed child torture. And they were counting on us being too terrified to stop them. I looked at Maya, still standing at rigid attention while tears streamed down her face, and made a decision that terrified me. Maya, I need you to trust me completely right now, I said, moving to kneel in front of her. What if we gave Marcus exactly what he thinks he wants, but we controlled every second of it? Detective Morrison started to protest, but I held up my hand. Listen. They're setting up to broadcast whatever happens in our front yard to dozens of people, right? What if those people saw something different than what Marcus is expecting? Maya's voice was barely a whisper. I don't understand, ma'am. What if instead of seeing a terrified child being punished, they saw a strong, brave girl telling the truth about what these monsters really do? What if your voice was the one being broadcast to all those families they're trying to recruit? Chen looked up from his radio. Sarah, you can't seriously be considering. I'm considering saving every other child on their prospect list, I interrupted. Maya said they have detailed profiles on 30 kids who aren't in the program yet. Parents who might be desperate enough to sign those consent forms. But what parent would hand their child over after seeing Maya tell her real story? Maya's rigid posture wavered slightly. Marcus said subjects who expose network operations receive permanent correction education, ma'am. There would be no return from consequence protocols of that severity. Baby, Marcus is going to prison. Along with every other trainer in this network. The only consequence you need to worry about is helping us make sure no other kid goes through what you did. Morrison's radio crackled. Detective, they're demanding a response. Subject must appear in the front yard within 6 minutes or they begin community correction protocols. Through our window, I could see figures positioning themselves near our neighbors' houses. Mrs. Patterson's porch light suddenly went dark, not turned off, but shot out. The message was clear. David grabbed my shoulder. Sarah, what exactly are you proposing? Maya goes out there, but instead of the broken, compliant robot they created, she tells everyone watching the stream exactly what this network really does. Names, locations, methods, everything. We turn their own broadcast against them. Janet shook her head violently. We cannot put a child in direct danger like that. It's completely against protocol. Ma'am, Maya said quietly, if I don't comply with appearance requirements, Marcus will implement community-wide consequence education. He showed me footage from Denver where an entire neighborhood received correction protocols when one subject failed to report for scheduled training. Chen's phone buzzed with urgent updates. The stream is live now. 63 viewers and climbing. They're broadcasting an empty yard with a caption educational demonstration. Subject 12 privacy violation correction begins in 4 minutes. Maya straightened her shoulders with visible effort. I request permission to proceed with consequence education, ma'am. Community safety requires subject compliance with network protocols. No, I said firmly. Community safety requires stopping these people permanently. Maya, you're the only one who knows enough details to expose their entire operation on live television. 63 people are watching right now, soon it'll be hundreds. Parents they're trying to recruit, families they're targeting, maybe even law enforcement from other states. Morrison's radio erupted, all units, additional suspects approaching from the east. Vehicle count now 9. Estimated 22 hostiles with professional equipment. Maya looked directly at me for the first time all evening, and I saw something shift in her eyes. Not the robotic compliance or the terror, but a spark of the fierce, stubborn girl I'd been trying to reach for 2 years. If I do this, she said, her voice still shaking but losing that horrible monotone, if I tell everyone watching what they really do to kids, will it stop them from hurting other children? Yes, baby. It will stop them. Maya nodded once, sharp and decisive. Then I'll do it. But I want Dad and you watching from the window. I need to see your faces when I get scared. Outside, Marcus's voice boomed through a megaphone, Subject 12, report for correction. Final warning. Maya walked toward our front door, and for the first time in 8 hours, she wasn't asking permission. Maya's hand was on our front door handle when Chen's radio erupted with a transmission that made everyone freeze. Detective, we've got federal agents on scene. FBI task force just arrived with jurisdiction override. They're ordering all local units to stand down immediately. Morrison grabbed his radio. What do you mean stand down? We have a child in immediate danger. Orders from Agent Patricia Wells, Federal Child Trafficking Task Force. They've been tracking this network for 8 months. Local intervention will compromise a multi-state operation. Maya's hand dropped from the door handle. Through the window, I could see new vehicles arriving, black SUVs positioning themselves between the police perimeter and Marcus's broadcast setup. 8 months? I said, feeling sick. The FBI knew about this for 8 months and Maya was still being tortured every weekend? Maya turned from the door, her face pale but her voice steady. Ma'am, if federal agents have been conducting surveillance, they possess recordings of network training sessions already. My testimony may be redundant. Before anyone could respond, Maya's phone, which had been silent all evening, buzzed with a text message. She looked at the screen and went completely white. What is it? David asked. Maya held up the phone with shaking hands. The message was from Lisa, her mother. Maya, Marcus says if you come home right now, he'll only give you standard correction for the privacy violation. But if the police arrest him, he shared everything about your behavior with his entire network. Every trainer will know you're a resistance risk. There will be nowhere safe. David's jaw clenched. She's threatening you on his behalf. Sir, Mom is implementing damage control protocols, Maya said, falling back into that robotic tone. When network security is compromised, all personnel, including family members, must participate in containment procedures. Agent Wells' voice suddenly crackled through Chen's radio. Detective Chen, we need the child brought to our mobile command unit immediately. We have critical intelligence that requires her immediate input. Morrison looked skeptical. What kind of critical intelligence? The network's central server location. Subject 12 accessed files during her training that contain routing information. We need to shut down their entire communication system. Maya's head snapped up. I never accessed any files, sir. Subjects were never permitted near network computers. Chen relayed this information, and there was a long pause before Agent Wells responded. The child may not realize she saw classified information. Bring her out now. Something about the federal agent's insistence felt wrong. Maya seemed to sense it too, her rigid posture returned, but now it looked more like a soldier preparing for battle than a terrified child awaiting punishment. Ma'am, Maya said quietly, Marcus mentioned administrative allies within law enforcement agencies. He said some federal personnel understand the value of network educational programs. The live stream viewer count on Chen's phone had jumped to 847 people. Whatever was about to happen, nearly 1,000 people were watching. Maya's phone buzzed again. This time the message made her gasp audibly. Maya, this is Subject 7. The girl you met 2 weeks ago. They have me and 6 other kids in a van 2 blocks from your house. Marcus says if you don't come out in 60 seconds, our advanced correction starts immediately and gets broadcast to prove network commitment. Please don't let them hurt us because of your resistance. We're scared. Maya looked at me with absolute determination. Sarah, I have to go out there. Not for Marcus, not for the FBI, but for the other kids. Outside, Agent Wells was approaching our front door. And Maya was absolutely right, we were running out of time to save everyone. Maya walked to our front door with the same rigid posture she'd maintained all evening, but something fundamental had changed. Her spine was still straight, her hands still clasped behind her back, but now it looked like a soldier's bearing rather than a victim's terror. Agent Wells, she called through the door in a voice that carried across our entire front yard. Before I comply with your instructions, I need you to confirm something for the 847 people currently watching this live stream. I saw Agent Wells falter mid-step. Through the window, I could see Marcus near the broadcast equipment, frantically gesturing for Maya to stop talking. Maya opened our front door and stepped onto the porch, positioning herself directly in front of the streaming cameras. My name is Maya Brennan, I'm 12 years old, and for 6 weeks I've been systematically tortured by a network of adults who call themselves behavioral trainers. The viewer count on Chen's phone jumped to 1,203 in real time. Agent Wells, Maya continued, her voice growing stronger, if you're really FBI, then you know Marcus Kellerman has been forcing me to stand against walls for over 2 hours as punishment for normal 12-year-old behavior. You know he's been starving me when I don't demonstrate sufficient respect. You know my own mother signed legal documents giving him permission to record my abuse and share those recordings with other predators. Wells had stopped moving entirely. In the distance, I could see Marcus abandoning the broadcast equipment and heading for one of the vehicles. Maya looked directly into the camera. To the parents watching this stream because you think your child needs intensive discipline restructuring, this is what that really means. They will lock your child in a basement room for 3 days with only a waste bucket and a mat. They will force them to earn every meal by performing humiliation rituals. They will record everything and show those recordings to other abusers as entertainment. The viewer count hit 2,847. Subject 7, if you're watching, I'm not letting them hurt you anymore, Maya called out, and I heard her voice crack slightly before she steadied it again. None of us are subjects. We're children, and we deserve better than what these monsters did to us. That's when Marcus made his fatal mistake. Instead of retreating, he charged toward Maya with zip ties in his hand, screaming about consequences for program violations, all of it captured in perfect high-definition video and streamed live to 3,691 viewers. Detective Morrison and his team moved simultaneously. Marcus was on the ground in handcuffs before he got within 10 feet of Maya, while Agent Wells turned out to be actual FBI after all, just an agent who'd been about to make the wrong call by prioritizing the investigation over Maya's immediate safety. Within 37 minutes, the van containing the 6 other children was located and surrounded. Within 2 hours, network servers in Phoenix, Dallas, and Seattle were simultaneously raided using intelligence Maya had provided during her impromptu broadcast testimony. By morning, 127 children across 7 states had been removed from behavioral training programs after their parents saw Maya's live-streamed account and contacted authorities. Maya finally sat down at 3:17 a.m., curled up between David and me on our couch, no longer asking permission for basic human needs. She'd stopped calling us ma'am and sir the moment Marcus was arrested, and when I asked if she wanted hot chocolate, she said, yes please, Sarah mom. That sounds really good right now. The live stream ended with 6,439 viewers who'd witnessed a 12-year-old girl's extraordinary courage destroy an entire network of predators with nothing but the truth. Marcus Kellerman was sentenced to 47 years in federal prison. Maya started therapy the following Tuesday and hasn't missed a session yet. And she never, ever asked permission to sit down in her own house.